Very good. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Village of Arlington Heights. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Diana Makula, the Deputy Village Manager, and I'll be moderating today's press conference. The purpose of today's press conference is an effort and call to action to support legislation that will allow projects like the one proposed by the Chicago Bears to occur in Illinois. Today, you will hear from various speakers regarding this effort. We'll start with brief remarks from our speakers, followed by a question and answer session. So thank you again, and to begin, I'd like to invite Mayor Jim Tenaglia for opening remarks.
Thank you, Diana, and thank you to everyone for being here from the media. This is a meaningful day at so many different levels, and I feel blessed to just be here to share it with you. As you can see behind me is an enormous show of support from labor union representatives as well as village elected officials and staff department heads who have been working on this project for no less than 3 years, almost 4 years, to try and make something wonderful happen in Arlington Heights. I have a statement that I want to read to you, and as Diana said, we'll have some other remarks, but then answer questions from anyone in the audience as well. So we're here today to talk about what we as a state need to do to ensure that major private developments like the one proposed in Arlington Heights by the Chicago Bears can occur. I'd like to acknowledge some of our special guests. Behind me and to my side is Senator Mark Walker, Illinois State Representative Nicole Graassi, Superintendents Scott Rowe, Lori Hines, and Judith Campbell. Those are from the school districts 214, 211, and 15. Those are the school districts that are impacted by this project. Heather Larson, who is the Executive Director of Meet Chicago Northwest, my entire Arlington Heights Village Board of Trustees, the senior village staff members, which meaning fire department, police department, engineering, public works, so on and so on. We all want to also acknowledge our partnership with the Illinois EDC, who is also here today. Behind them, if you haven't noticed, is a massive number of representatives from the union leaders in Illinois. Some of them are from the IUOE Local 150, Local 399, Carpenters, IBEW 134, and IATSE Local 2, not to mention all the others as well. Please recognize that these folks are here because they care. We're all here together because we're all troubled by the potential of losing the Chicago Bears' proposed new development and other major investments like it due to the inadequacy of Illinois law. It's an important word to use today. It's just about inadequacy. What the Chicago Bears are proposing would be the largest private invested development in the history of our state. Their proposed privately funded NFL stadium, ready to host major events such as the Super Bowl, Final Four tournaments, would be accompanied by a large mixed-use sports and entertainment district. This development is proposed or projected to generate $10.9 billion in one-time economic activity, 1,800 new permanent jobs, and $2 billion in new tax revenue for local, county, and state governments over the next 40 years. The Chicago Bears Football Club is ready to commit billions of their own money to make this happen. And despite this major investment and all it promises, uncertainty in Illinois property tax law is putting this project in jeopardy, forcing the Bears to look elsewhere. Behind me on the screen is a PowerPoint slide of some property taxes, and it explains a little bit about what was the initial property tax for the park when it was the racetrack fully operational at $3 million, what it became when it was bought for $200 million, and then it talks a little bit about what some of the other comparable stadiums in the country and locally are paying per year. It's an important slide. I hope you all spend a few minutes looking at that because it tells the whole story right there. Because of this information that you're seeing right now, this is why we need to pass a mega projects bill immediately in the legislative term. It was hoped that that would be passed last year in May and again in October. It failed to get that done, but we're hopeful that with a little help from all of us in this room, it can happen this spring. Without such a law, the Bears' property taxes on a new privately owned stadium could be as much as $100 to $200 million a year. The highest bill for any other football stadium in the country is the brand new stadium in Los Angeles, or just outside of Los Angeles, called SoFi. And as you can see on the chart up there, it's only $8.8 million per year. Nobody, and I'm going to repeat, nobody, whether you're a private entrepreneur or a giant corporation, no one would find a way to fund a private investment with that kind of a property tax liability. We can't fumble this opportunity. So I want to make a couple of really important points clear here today. Number one, this is something I hope that everybody talks about coming up here. The Chicago Bears are not capitalized, not asking for taxpayer money to build their stadium in Arlington Heights. It's a big, important piece of this puzzle. I hear about it every day. Well, the Bears don't want to come here because they're not getting enough money from the government to build their stadium. Could not be further from the truth. The Bears have not asked anybody for money to build their stadium. There is nothing in the bill that we're talking about that would involve the transfer of public funds for a new stadium. Neither the Village of Arlington Heights nor the state of Illinois have ever offered that. Public money will be needed for infrastructure around the site, no matter who develops it and whatever it becomes. These are natural, common practices that happen for every development. And Governor Pritzker is aware of that. If you haven't watched recently, he is aware of that, and he acknowledges that, which is wonderful. That's an important piece of this puzzle. We appreciate that. That's an ask that Arlington Heights will make when that's figured out as to what those numbers are. Right now, it's about the mega projects bill. The proposed mega projects bill is not a Bears bill. Let's make sure that everyone understands that as well. This is not a Bears bill. This is a tool that will exist in the Illinois governmental toolbox to attract major projects across Illinois. Massive projects, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollar projects like this one would need a clear, reasonable, and predictable property tax calculation. We all know when we have our own homes that you're going to get taxed a certain percentage, right? You can count on it. The Bears need to know what that will be too if they spend $4 or $5 billion on the stadium. Right now, they don't know what that is, and it's a little bit of a scary number. Many other states already have such tools in place. This bill in Illinois would require, and I repeat, require developers such as the Bears to work directly with affected taxing bodies, including schools, and set long-term taxing structures that help all parties and ensure that the local services are funded. The state would need this type of legislation for any robust redevelopment of Arlington Park or anywhere else in the state, no matter who was doing it. So at this point, there is no other viable location for an NFL stadium-centered entertainment district in Illinois other than Arlington Heights. And it cannot move forward without a mega projects bill from Springfield. We must stand together, not as Arlington Heights residents, not as Chicago residents. We're all Illinoisans today. This is about keeping the Bears in Illinois and giving them the tools to do so. We must stand together as Illinoisans to prevent our state from being out of the NFL business altogether. We all must take this very seriously. I said it in the newspaper with a report that we did a few weeks ago. Yes, I take Indiana very seriously, and everyone should. Everyone in the room would agree, I'm sure, that the Chicago Bears should not get special treatment just because they're the Bears. But they shouldn't have it held against them either. They should be treated the same as any other entity making such a massive investment in our community that provides jobs, revenue, and economic activity that this project can provide. A property tax bill of 12 to 25 times higher than their closest peer is not fair, and will cost us the largest private development project in the state history if we don't act now. I think we can all agree that it just needs to be fair. The Bears are looking for something fair. They don't want a handout. We are in a clutch situation like a certain quarterback right now, and what we do will matter and determine what comes next for Illinois. We urge the Illinois General Assembly to pass the mega projects bill this legislative session. It's a common sense approach that brings stability, transparency, and long-term benefits for the residents, all taxpayers, municipalities, and developers alike. The only issue at hand right now, the only issue is the mega projects bill needs to get done before the Chicago Bears to commit to another state. And this bill is what is needed to make that project work at Arlington Park. So at this point, I want to thank everyone and introduce to you our Senator Mark Walker and Representative Nicole Graassi to share their personal perspectives as well.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm Mark Walker. I'm the state senator for this area. I'm also the initial sponsor of the mega projects bill. Who is the final sponsor will determine by some negotiation, but I'm carrying it right now. I'd like to make 3 points. I'd like to reiterate that this was structured so that money for the stadium and building the stadium will not come from the taxpayer. Whenever opponents of this say we don't want to give money to the Bears for the stadium, we heard that, and that's how this bill is designed, and the Bears have never asked for that from us. After some initial discussions when we made it clear 3 years ago that it wasn't going to happen. So that's not part of this bill. Second thing is talking about local taxpayers. The reason this bill is so important, besides it producing a big opportunity for economic development, sales tax, all kinds of revenues for the local areas, is this bill is structured like an updated, more sophisticated version of a TIF. And the thing that makes it special is that the taxing bodies themselves have a hand in developing the plan and signing off on it and negotiating it. It is run by a board that includes the taxing bodies themselves based on how much they're impacted. So the people most impacted by any decision on property taxes, and in this case out here is mostly the school districts, will be the ones that have the most power in determining their future commitments and their future revenues. It is very important that we support education in that way. Finally, it looks like in Indiana that the governor has come forward very strongly in kind of a political way and a PR way, and has made this a key part of his presentation to his legislature. In fact, he is not especially popular right now in Indiana, but that doesn't mean he wouldn't win. And he needs this. The interesting thing about that is that he basically has put forward all kinds of positive statements, but the only thing they've actually passed is a bill that sets up a committee to study this and sets up a sports finance authority to potentially fund it. Both of those things have been done already in Illinois, and our sports finance authority is at least 30 years old. So they're catching up. Speaking on the Bears, my experience with the Bears has been that they are run by a very ethical and loyal family to Illinois. They are managed by a new president who is honest when he says this is not a lever. This is a legitimate consideration of economic opportunities for this company. We take him at his word. He has always been straightforward and honest, and Kevin Warren is that kind of person. So this is not some kind of game. I believe the Bears will, after due consideration, decide to come to Arlington Heights because all of the work has been done. We have agreements on traffic studies, on economic development studies, on environmental studies, we have the infrastructure here, the train track, a station. We already are working on exits from Route 53. All of that will have to be planned, developed, and agreed upon in Indiana. And the Bears need speed because the cost of building a stadium are going up geometrically because much of the material used to build a stadium is impacted by tariffs. So they need speed. We can provide that speed because almost all the preliminary work's been done. So I would urge you, and I would urge the public, to support the mega project bill. It is an updated version of economic development bills that we ordinarily do, but it shifts the power towards the education establishment more than it was in the past. And those are the people that mostly determine your property taxes. So thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Nicole Graassi. I'm the state representative with the 53rd district in this area, and I'm grateful to be here. I wanted to speak, as a representative, I am tasked with really taking a look at what best benefits those people I represent in my district, but also what best benefits all in our entire state. And that is why I'm in support of this mega project bill, because it really is an economic tool to bring and allow bigger businesses to come into our state, to create jobs, to support our local communities, our local governments, and most importantly, to help the tax burden for all of us within the state. So I come here in support of the mega project bill and realizing that it's not just about the Bears, but the ways that mega projects can be an important part for all parts of our state. So I really want to take that piece and bring that out. And I also just wanted to mention the importance of having the Bears stay here in Illinois. They've always been an Illinois team. So that it's not just a Chicago issue or an Arlington Heights issue. This, again, is a bigger Illinois issue. We want to keep our Chicago Bears here and allow other mega projects to want to come to Illinois to further our economic development within our state and help all of us. And I just want to quickly say, as someone who was born in Indiana and raised in Wisconsin, I have chosen Illinois to be my home and to stay here. And my hope is that with this mega project, we can make sure the Bears stay here too for all of us. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much to our speakers and Representative Graassi and Walker. So unless anybody else has some comments that they would like to share this morning, we're going to open it up to a 20-minute question and answer session. So please, we invite you to, to state your questions. Please provide your name and your outlet. Please keep your questions brief, and we'll move through all of you for about 20 minutes. So thank you so much.
Okay, Mary Ann.
Hey, Mary Ann Aker from NBC5. Thank you so much. How much has the Bears' success on the field made a difference in this pitch? And will that make a difference in spring?
I can honestly tell you it is making zero difference on this. We've been working on this, how many years now? Has it been 4? 4 years. Every week, every month, it has been a process from the very beginning. It's all started in this boardroom back then. It's wonderful that the Bears are doing as well as they are. We're all big fans, but it really is a separate note altogether.
What do you think, what is the politics at play here that is keeping lawmakers from getting on board?
That's a tough question. I can tell you that as I started out here with my presentation, we're all Illinoisans today in this room, but I know that it's a tough pill to swallow when a major program like the Bears suggests they want to leave one community and go to another. So my suspicion, that's all it is that that was part of the problem in the very beginning. How does that happen without being really offensive to another community? And right now, it's time to stop arm wrestling over this. This is something, if it's going to happen in Illinois, it's going to happen in Arlington Heights. And I can tell all of you that I know the Bears want to come here. They've wanted to come here for 40 years. And George and Kevin and all the rest of them have told me so. If this doesn't happen in Arlington Heights, it's only because someplace else offered them an opportunity that they just could not refuse.
What is your reaction on the move that Indiana lawmakers, the play that they made yesterday? Did this bring a sense of urgency as to what you're doing here today?
This meeting here today has been planned for 2 weeks. Everything that we've been doing here and trying to gather everybody as we have has been worked on for 2 weeks. It's interesting how everything kind of came together at one time like this, but it really had no bearing on what happened in Indiana over the last couple of days.
Mayor, Jeff Buckles, WBDM News Radio. You said that the Arlington Heights proposal is the only viable one. Mayor Johnson says his lakefront proposal that he pitched with the Bears 2 years ago is the only viable one, and the delegation that represents Chicago is not really probably that interested in giving up a tenant that's been on the lakefront for 40 or 50 years or so. To you and to the members of the legislature, what are members of the Chicago legislative delegation telling you about what they'll need in order to get to yes on a proposal like this?
That's a really tough question. I will answer the first half of that by saying I know that the NFL, as a general conglomerate, there are certain requirements on building a new stadium right now. You must be able to handle a Super Bowl. There must be certain parameters around the stadium for security reasons and so on. It's going to require a certain number of acreage to do that, parking, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's not available in Chicago. As much as Mayor Johnson would like it to be, and as much as those legislators would like it to stay there, it's not possible for it to stay there. That has been communicated again and again and again, and that's why if you speak to the Bears, they will tell you the same thing. We have tried. They spent 2 years trying to figure out how to make it happen in Chicago after they already had bought the property here, and it was unable to make that work. So they're back to here asking for help on this one specific item. And in my heart of hearts, I firmly believe if we can get this detail solved, it will be done.
Senator Walker and Representative Graassi, your thoughts on what it'll take to get the Chicago delegation over the line?
I think you bring up a great question, and that is the elephant in the room. What's going on in Springfield, number one, is there's been a tremendous amount of discussion on this overall project before Indiana was announced, a tremendous amount of negotiation ongoing now with the governor's staff and others. I think the mega project bill is rounding into a general agreement and concept, but the big hurdle is in fact getting votes from the Chicago delegation. They feel, and I can't speak for them, my guess is, I think they feel badly done. They feel that they invested in the team with their own money, not the Bears' money, and borrowed money to redo the stadium, and it's less than 25 years old. And on the other hand, the Bears honestly believe as a corporation they must get a bigger stadium. They must own it, not rent it. And it drastically impacts their value as a franchise. So I can't speak for the Chicago people. I would say my impression among the people I do talk to is that they're coming along to believing it's probably inevitable that the Bears will move. But okay, given that, what do we get? And I can't answer that question.
I would offer that, I think the conversations have been happening, but they need to be happening more intensely now. I want to also say that it seems that the picture now is having to look at the bigger view of this all. Not only do we as an entire state want the Bears to stay here, but the ways that this mega project will benefit the entire state. It's not just a Bears bill, it is a mega project bill that will help and be an economic tool for all of our state. And that is what I think we need to really focus on and have those conversations around and really see what we can unify together on. And part of that is being a Bears fan wherever their stadium is, we're still Bears fans. So that's what I think matters too.
Hi, Mayor. Oh,
I want to follow up with one thing really quick. Look at these folks standing behind me. Try to say no to all of them. Try to tell me that Indiana is a better option. These folks are here, hard-working people wanting to do good work in Illinois, and all we're asking for is an opportunity to make that happen. Go ahead.
hi, Sabrina Franza from CBS News Chicago. What does Indiana have at this point that Illinois does not?
Nothing. I'd say that flip it, of course. But the reality is Indiana is, I'm a business owner, okay? I own my own business here in town for 34 years. And I will tell you this, if someone offered me a deal that I couldn't refuse, pay for this, pay for that, build me this, build me that, it's really hard to say no, really hard. I don't want to get to that point. I want this solved so that Illinois wins, these folks win, we all win.
And we know that the Bears has been surveying some of their season ticket holders as to where they think the team should move.
Yes.
Your message to those season ticket holders?
Well, I would say be honest and tell them that, you know, how you feel about taking a train to Arlington Heights and not having to find a parking stall, or enjoying everything that's good about the northwest suburbs, or having to find your way down to northwest Indiana. Those are two pretty opposite choices.
Mayor, it's Danny Ecker from Cranes. I'm not sure. We've heard a little bit from the Chicago delegation that they're seeking some specifics about, well, what would the bill be? What would this negotiated bill be? Can you give us a sense? Obviously, you look at the numbers you showed up from other stadiums. I know that's a complicated thing. It involves multiple taxing districts. Is there anything you guys, you or anyone else here, was able to commit to at this point to offer some specifics on, here's where we think a legitimate tax bill might be after negotiation, because maybe that will answer this question of perhaps in the mind of those who think, well, it is a break. It is a break. You know, they might say, well, how much of a break? What can you guys say in terms of specifics on that front?
I would never use that word as a break. It's not a break. This is an opportunity for these folks and others like them to sit at a table before anything is done, before anything's agreed upon, and calculate the numbers for the next 40 years. If I spend $2 billion, the tax bill will be this. If I spend $4 billion, it will be this. These are opportunities to sit down and navigate those waters and negotiate ahead of time. I'll give you, like I said, if you built a house for your family for $4 million, you know you can expect a tax bill of 2.5%, and that's going to be 25 times 4. It's going to be $100,000 a year in property taxes, right? If I spend $4 billion, what will my tax bill be? And that's what they need to get their arms around. Does it have to be $100 million or $200 million when we're not generating certain needs off of the services in the community? That's what these folks can do. They can sit at that table and make those arguments and get it done.
Just a quick follow. I mean, is it fair to assume that the numbers we saw, SoFi, something like that, that's the ballpark you're envisioning for? I know it's not a commitment you can make yourself.
No.
But
If I were, able to wave a magic wand, I would say yes, something in that ballpark, single digits would be something that would make sense to me. But it probably won't be. It'll probably be something more than that. I just hope they can come to an agreement that is tolerable for everyone. Yes.
One last, can you, though, walk us through 100 million to 200 million? I mean,
How does that happen?
yeah. It
Okay,
seems
think about
really
this. I'll give you the quick math. Again, a $1 million home gets taxed. You can estimate about 2.5%, right? So 2.5% of $1 million, you're going to get a tax bill of $25,000 per year, and that's something you're not going to be able to argue about or debate about. in Cook County. If you start with $4 billion and you do the residential calculation, not commercial calculation, and it's 2.5%, that's $100 million right there. If they spend $5 billion, it's more. And then if they use the commercial tax code, which is, I believe, 7.5%, take 7.5% of $4 billion. We're in the hundreds of millions per year. So these are numbers that are not marketable. They could never finance a project like that. And then if anything were to happen, they could never sell it. There's no buyer for that. So the number has to be tolerable. Just like you would not design your own home or your own office building knowing that your tax bill is going to be out of control, you'll back off and either cancel the project or redesign something smaller. They don't have a choice to redesign something smaller, but they could leave the state. That's what we're really trying to avoid.
Maybe I'm naive, and it's not my forte of taxes, but wouldn't a business get a break anyway? I mean, you're talking about residential property. We're talking
No,
about
businesses are taxed 2.5 times of what residentials are. So my little office building in town here is 2.5 times what I paid for my house in town. The commercial entities, every commercial property carries the lion's share of property taxes so that the residents can have a little bit of a break. And I'll say this, one other thing. There are communities in Illinois, one nearby, that have such a wonderful commercial tax program that they've been able to reduce and sometimes remove the residential property tax for that community. Wouldn't that be wonderful? If such a fabulous engine like this happened on this site, retail sales and ticket sales and everything else, that our residents could get a break on their Arlington Heights property taxes. That's something I would love to see happen, and I know our residents would too, so that's my goal.
Mayor, what would you say would be the winning argument? What would you say would be the winning argument to say, okay, let's work out a tax structure that is reasonable for the Bears to operate with, when others might say, you know, look, we need the money for the schools, we want the money for the schools, or if there's pressure to bring in that money, what's the winning argument to say it will be worth it in the bigger picture to bring in less property tax revenue from a stadium because?
Mark, go ahead.
A great question, because that's the question in the public's mind. The key to this bill is, and I want to say it again, it allows the local taxing bodies, based upon how much they would be impacted, to have the power to set the rate rather than the assessor and the board of review. So the school districts get significant amount of power here to set what that rate is, and we've all agreed that they will negotiate fairly that, and it's only a win for them. It's only significantly more money than they would get if there were no project. So, and the power has shifted.
There's an example of this already in play, and it happened 2 years ago. It's called an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, that these folks, the Bears, Arlington Heights, all signed. It's a document that says, here's what we agree to while it's an empty space and so on. And instead of having a tax bill that was going to be $16 million a year, as you saw on that slide before. Can we put that back up, slide? It brought it back down to $3 million a year, or 3.6, which is what the track was paying when it was an operating functional facility. So right now there's no loss, no gain, but no loss. But that's what happens when you sit at a table and work things out. Randy, go ahead.
Sure. Randy Reckles, Village Manager. I want to talk about this a little bit broadly because it's really important. Again, the racetrack was paying $3 million in taxes when people were racing horses, betting, buying alcohol, and so forth. So when they sold the track and the Bears bought it, their bill went up to $16 million as a vacant piece of property. What we're saying is, based on these on the estimates that we have, their bill could go up to 100 to 200 million when their closest competitor, SoFi Stadium, is paying 8.8, and Wrigley Field is paying 2.7. So why does Wrigley Field have $2.7 million tax bill? That's because they have landmark status, and so they get historic preservation credits. The United Center pays $6.1 million. Why does the United Center only pay $6.1 million? They had special legislation for the United Center passed when that structure was built, so that to set those taxes for a long period of time. Soldier Field pays 0, Rate Field pays 0. That's what we're trying to avoid. We don't want to have a publicly owned facility or a facility that's getting special legislation from the legislature to fix their taxes. What we want is a fair process for major economy-changing projects like this to have all of the people in the room, the school districts, the village, and so forth, sit down and talk about what are the needs, special needs we have for this site. What are the things that we're going to have to pay for on this site, and make sure that we have enough revenue over a long period of time to do that. That's what this does. These types of projects are different. Again, that's why a lot of these projects don't pay taxes, but we want it to be a privately owned stadium that pays taxes, pays their fair share, pays for all the services that they demand. That's what we're looking for, and we want to make sure that the right people are in the room, meaning the school districts, the village, all the local governments, to negotiate that. What that number is going to be is going to depend on what we calculate our needs are going to be based on the texture of that project, the exact components of that project. So it's going to be a moving target until we see exactly what's involved.
Before you go, maybe explain really quickly why Soldier Field and Guaranteed Rate pay zero, and why we're asking it to not be.
Sure. Soldier Field and Guaranteed Rate Field or Rate Field are publicly owned. And so they don't pay taxes. And what we're saying is we want this facility to be privately owned, privately financed, so that they pay their fair share of taxes. That's what we want. And the Bears agree to that point. But what we all agree is that these taxes need to be fair.
Okay, we've got time for about 2 more questions.
Could I invite up those on the side here who haven't spoken, but I have, as they're in the room here, and Chris Placek from the Daily Herald for everybody that doesn't know. Dr. Rowe or the other superintendents, what Jim mentioned, maybe single digits would be the number you would like, might be more than that. Mark Batnick, who we wrote about today, he thinks the number might be 10 million to 15 million. What number would you guys be comfortable with that's between 3 and 200? What's a good number for the schools?
I think, we've spoken with each other over the last few years, and we have a memorandum of understanding on a process to set these types of rates, but it is too premature to say that. The honest answer, if you're looking for an honest answer, is it depends. It depends on what's in that mixed use district. It depends on how much revenue is generated generally from the site. Those are the factors that we have to look at, and we work very hard with the school districts to come up with a framework where we're all confident that we can come up with a number that's fair for everybody. And I don't know if anyone has anything else to share.
Hi, I'm Lori Hines. I'm the superintendent in District 15, it's the elementary district, and the parcel is in my district entirely. 326 acres are in elementary District 15. 4 years ago, when we started this conversation, we set out to ensure 2 things: that our school districts were made whole and didn't suffer as a result of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that the Chicago Bears, which I am a lifetime Bears fan, would bring to our district and the neighboring high school districts 211 and 214. Our memo of understanding, in which we worked for 2 years on, makes sure 2 things are true. We are made whole from a student perspective. That means any students that are generated from the mixed use portion, not the stadium, potentially the other 200 acres. There could be homes there. How many children are going to come to our districts? We need a per pupil expenditure assurance that we don't have to pay for kids that development generated, and there are no tax dollars attached to them or student impact fees attached to them. The other component has to do with capital expenditures. If we need to build additions on our schools, which I likely would, and as would 211 and 214, we're going to need some help with capital expenditures. If I have to build a new building, build an addition, so the MOU protects us there as well. We do not have a number. We are not the Cook County Assessor's Office. We are not setting tax rates. We do not have that authority. So that's a misnomer out in the communities. We want those two things, and we have a signed agreement. We feel confident the MOU will ensure that those two things happen. That's what's important to us.
Wouldn't it be easier to sell this whole idea to lawmakers, particularly the Chicago delegation, if they had some ballpark numbers that they could look at, that they could chew on and decide whether it's, something that they could deal with?
From my perspective, I don't disagree with you, but as Lori said, that's not our role in this. We educate the children that it may produce, and that's our sole focus, and ensuring that our constituents and our parents and the greater community remains confident in the education that their kids get, which is some of the best in all of Chicagoland and all of the country, I would argue. And because of that, we want to be sure that we can continue to maintain that high level of academics that we can produce with the per pupil expenditures to ensure we have all of the teachers that we need. If we need to expand classrooms or shift how our schools function, that there are dollars that accompany those new kids if students are generated. That's been our sole focus from the get-go. I'm Scott Rowe, Superintendent of High School District 214.
If I
You're
could
very
say
welcome.
just one more thing. We were talking about what else we need from this process is to just make sure that we have that seat at the table. With a typical TIF, it's 23 years. The village gets to enact a TIF, and we don't have a say in its development. The increment is tied up. The monies are tied up for 23 years. We get a small portion each year. So for 40 years, potentially, the municipalities would have the money, and that's where we are vulnerable as a school system and as a community. When we were looking 4 years ago, before you were the mayor, we wrote a letter to Mayor Hayes, and we asked about TIF, the TIF increment financing and the impact. And we said, please allow us to have a seat at the table so we can help develop this process to the extent that we should be involved, so our kids in schools and communities are protected. And we have done that. So that is also another really important component that I think has been lost in translation by news outlets and other folks. We are not trying to, scoop up as much money as we can. That's not what this is about. We want a seat at the table. We have a voice in how it's going to be developed to make sure our interests, and more importantly, the interests of our students and their families are protected.
I was going to make one comment regarding the question about wouldn't it be easier to pass legislation if Chicago and others had an idea of what the taxes were going to be. 2 points on that. One, this bill isn't about just this project. It's creating a framework so projects like this can be negotiated across the state. And I would say no to your point, and this is the reason. The whole idea of this is that people in other parts of the state shouldn't be determining what those taxes should be for a project in Arlington Heights or a project in Chicago or a project in Decatur. The idea is that those folks that are responsible for providing services to this community, being all of us right here, are the ones that determine what those rates are, not folks in another city or another part of the state.
Okay, so we're going to take 2 more questions.
Good morning. I'm Bob McCoppin from the Chicago Tribune. Hi, Mayor. This might be a question more for the state lawmakers, but the other half of this issue is, of course, the Chicago lawmakers. What can you offer them to get them to go along with something that's going to help the Bears leave the city? And they have talked about the debt for Soldier Field, which is more than $500 million. And the Bears are not obligated to pay for that beyond their penalty from their lease if they leave early. But what consideration or discussion has there been to provide any payment for Soldier or pay down that debt for the Bears to leave Soldier Field? Is there any discussion of some sort of tax comeback that would help pay off that debt?
It's a very on-point question. There have been plenty of discussions. There have been plenty of ideas tossed around. There have been no commitments made. And that is not going to be part of this bill, but it might be required to get votes for this bill.
Okay, one final question.
And it has been alluded to, but it comes down to what's in it for them. So what is in it for the Chicago delegation? Why should they care about the Arlington Heights property taxes?
I was joking about this with some friends the other day. I have 2 young boys wrestling in the family room over who gets to have the bowl of ice cream. And they're fighting and fighting and fighting. And eventually mom says, you know, guys both go to bed, no one gets the ice cream. The Bears are the ice cream right now. We can't argue amongst ourselves between one community versus another community. That's why I started this off today, is we're all in Illinois together. What's in it for the other communities are all the benefits that stay here because the Bears stay here. O'Hare is halfway between Chicago and Arlington Heights. Anyone that comes and visits this area to watch a game or see a concert or do anything, they could so easily go downtown and enjoy all the wonderful opportunities, the museums and the lakefront and everything that happens in the city of Chicago that we don't have out here. And then jump on a train and in 35 minutes, without having to deal with traffic, pop out of a metro car and they're staring at Soldier Field. Don't have to find a parking space, go to a concert, get back in the train, go down to the city and finish your nice stay in Chicago and go back out to O'Hare and go away. While all along the time, spend hopefully a ton of money in Illinois. That's our hope, and that's what makes sense to us. Let's work together. Let's get this done. This is important for all of us. And the alternative is the ice cream goes to Indiana. That's not a good option.
So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you again for attending today's press conference. We appreciate your time and attention. There will be opportunity for you to speak to a couple people that are up here afterwards. But I do want to say a couple thanks to all of those that traveled here today, especially the union groups and the folks behind us, to the village board, to the leadership team, to the state representatives, and to the school districts. We very much appreciate everyone's attendance today. Any final comments, Mayor?
I just want to thank these guys. These are the guys carrying the shovels, hanging all the drywall, putting all the roofs together, and if this doesn't happen, it's a shame for all of them. So thank you guys for everybody. And then lastly, as I said, we've been talking about this internally here at Village Hall for 2 weeks. This has been a process, and without the horsepower of the village staff, Randy and Diana and others, this could not have happened either. You guys for being here, please, please spread the word, share it clearly, make sure everyone understands it, because in my little world, nobody seems to get this. Every time I talk to someone out in the general public, they think it's because Springfield doesn't want to give the Bears money to build their stadium. And that's not even close to the truth. The Bears have not asked for any money to build a stadium. They won't get any money to build a stadium. So thank you all for being here.